This is your home for the most competitive football in the state of Michigan. Your home for the most comprehensive coverage week in and week out. This is the Mac Attack with Zach and Zach.
Zach, it is so great to be back down in the basement and finally talking about like the real deal. Football
is here. It's on the horizon. I didn't think we'd be talking about it in the fall originally, but
nobody did.
I'm happy that we are, because we have been in the basement. We've been doing a lot of speculating. We've been doing a lot of discussions on everything else that came along with this.
Yeah.
But now
I'm like chopping at the bit.
Let's talk some pigskin here, man. Let's go.
So, Zach, there's a lot going on here. And before we go any further, I just want to point out that nothing here is guaranteed, and the proof is in the pudding. Utica's first game, for them at least, is not going to happen.
Somewhat breaking news here. That we're just kind of getting in.
Yeah, late last night. Utica is, and they're just finishing now what is a 2-week quarantine. They should be good to go for week 1, but their game against L'Anse Creuse North not going to happen as scheduled.
Yeah, and I gotta kind of imagine this will not be the first time we hear about this in the MAC.
And that's why we're saying it. You got to brace yourself for the possibility of this happening at any point in time.
And I think the coaches know that and the players know that, and they're prepared for it. But, it's the responsible way of handling it that's going to determine, are you still around when it's time to play in the playoffs?
Absolutely. So, Zach, let's set the stage here before we get into our week 1, week 4, before we get into
whatever you want to call it.
Whatever we get into this week's prediction, including our game of the week, which, I mean, Zach, it has to be Dakota at Chippewa Valley. We'll get into all rivalry of that. But, I mean, you look at last season, Zach, and, another strong showing for the MAC Red, right? And, really the MAC Red was upended almost completely by one team, and that team was Davidson. They won the state championship, right? They ran all the way through. But now you add in Grosse Pointe South, and the dynamic of this division has changed completely. What was the most competitive division in the state is now like the most.
It just got harder. It just got harder.
And talking to coaches over the last couple of days, the amount of you hear when you talk about the 5 straight games, if things happen the way they're supposed to, the 5 straight games against MAC Red opponents. I mean, it's going to be absolutely brutal. And I mean, it's why we're here. This is the best part.
And Zach, knowing what we know, especially the fact that all these teams, if healthy, will be going to the playoffs, I've got to imagine that those 5 straight weeks, we know MAC teams match up against each other in the playoffs. Just the way it's laid out, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So this might be the hardest season of football in Macomb County history.
I mean, ever for so many reasons, and a good chunk of that I think is outside of the wild circumstances in which we find ourselves just in everyday life, Zach. But the addition of Grosse Pointe South. So before we get into the opening week, let's do something. In fact, one of the coaches I spoke to called me crazy when I said we were going to do season predictions.
Why? Because everybody's tied for first and simultaneously last. Because there's no way, not just because we don't know as much as we should at this point, but
even if
because
we did,
but because all of these teams are so evenly matched with their strengths and weaknesses kind of balancing each other out. So it's just kind of going to depend on who shows up to play that day, who's healthy, who's going out there and, getting ahead of the game. And I don't know. This is a harder list than I think we've ever had to make before.
It is. So let's jump right into the deep end. Let's start at the top. All right.
1.
All right, Zach, for me, number 1, I'm going with Dakota. So much big-time talent. They've got a returning quarterback, which is a rarity in this league. That's the one thing right now that, for the most part, this league is lacking, is strong returning quarterbacks. There are a couple of them, and those that are there are going to make a difference. Zach Drosky is one of those guys at Dakota. So much talent on this team. They've got 3 dudes committed to Central Michigan. The Javian Stepney is one of the best players in the state, Zach, just a junior. They're bringing 14 guys back from last year's team. And look, the way last year ended for them, right? They upend Chippewa Valley. We have the jacket incident.
Sure.
Stevenson wins that game. I was there.
Yep.
And, that has sat with them. And again, just so much talent on this team. It's very hard to look at them and not see, to me, the best team. And it's not just DJ Stepney, right? You look at a guy like Eric Reese, Clinton Robertson, right? I mentioned Zach Drosky. Those three dudes, though, outside of Drosky, all three of them going to Central Michigan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this team
it feels like the Chippewa fire up chips here. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like for Dakota right now.
I think for Dakota to say, isn't
right?
it?
Exactly. You got to be careful where you say that. But I don't disagree with you, Zach. I think momentum wise, having that senior leadership in Drosky is going to be very important as we look around to a lot of these other teams in the MAC.
Yeah, they don't
that
have
are trying to figure out who is going to be their starting quarterback, and they haven't had a lot of time to work with these kids. This isn't something where it was a normal preseason where you could really hone in on that one. You know how it happens in the beginning of the season. You're making decisions up until game day as to who's going to be your starting quarterback.
I'll tell you something, though, Zach. You mentioned the run up and the strangeness. Remember when the governor said or the MHSAA, excuse me, when the MHSAA said you could have you could have 16 practices over this span of time. You know what Dakota did instantly? They had those 4 practices, and then football came back. So they actually didn't really stop.
Sure.
They're the only ones that have gone all the way through. I'm not saying that that's going to make a huge difference, but Zach, out of the gate, their ability to have not really skipped a beat is huge. And again, you mentioned Drosky and the returning guys. I mean, this for me is why I have Dakota at 1.
Do we know if the other teams did that same strategy, or was it only Dakota that you're aware of?
It's only Dakota that I'm aware
Gotcha.
of. I think that if it had happened otherwise, I would have heard about it. Again, I'm not the gospel. We all know that. But I've got Dakota at 1. Zach?
I just because I don't know where to go with this, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say we've got Dakota at 1, but the argument could be made for what's coming up at number 2.
Yeah.
They could easily be flip-flops, so let's check that out.
Yeah, let's go.
2.
All right, at 2, I've got Stevens and Zach. I mean, the rise under Justin Newcomb has been incredible. Last year, they squeaked into the playoffs in 2019 on a field goal. They play Warren again. They go down like 14-0 without even touching the ball, right? And then they ran to the state semis. And that game against Davison, who won the state championship, that game was so close. I was there. I remember that moment when it was over and standing in the end zone with those young men and hearing Newcomb speak. And I thought to myself, those guys that are coming back, like, not only are they going to have the momentum, but they're going to have this moment to go with them. And this is still a young team. You look at guys like Jordan Ramsey, and he's got all kinds of MAC offers. So does Jordan Kiwakowski. And then I'm not even mentioning one of the best players, and if not for maybe one of the best athletes in the country, Giovanni El-Hadi would be the best player, and he'll make his case for the best player. You know what's crazy about this league, Zach? You look at the best players. You look at Gio El-Hadi. You look at Will Johnson, DJ Stepney, Jr.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And that's
more to come.
How many times did we say that kid's name last season? I don't think a week went by where Giovanni El-Hadi was not the guy who we were talking about when it came to Stevenson. And knowing that he's got 2 more years at the varsity level, it just goes to show you that this team, with a year of experience under their belt and being as young as they are, having a little bit of a fire under their belt, this might be their year to really make a splash.
Yeah, and look, there are still some seniors on this squad, right? You keep your eye on a guy like Tony Shoemate, senior defensive back. I think you're going to see Tommy Houston get some reps at quarterback. And look, they've got some question marks. We've talked about guys last year. In fact, we had Nick Wingfield in this room, Sal Madonna, Latrell Stovall, Hunter Nowak. But there's plenty of talent on this team, and they've got all the momentum going in. And you're right, Zach. Number 2 and number 1 to me were neck and neck. But again, because of just the sheer talent and size of Dakota, I had them ahead. But you could have put Stevenson at 1B, and I wouldn't have objected too much.
If I recall correctly, was Dakota our number 1 last year?
No, Chippewa
Valley was. Okay, Dakota was really...
Stevenson was 5.
Close. Okay, yes, exactly. Talk about movers and shakers here. They've and that was only 5 right in front of Anchor Bay, which we all knew was at the bottom
with
of
all
the
due
division,
respect, yes.
who we won't be seeing this year.
No, No, in fact, they dropped down not only to the white but into the blue, which I think that'll give them with
probably the right spot for them.
And remember who their head coach is now. Remember just that they're not going to be down there for very long.
Keep an eye on them.
If things go the way that they have, they won't be down there for long. So Zach and I lockstep 1-2. Again, Stevenson is number 2, continuing 3. Zach, I have Eisenhower at number 3. I feel like for whatever reason, over the last couple of years, Eisenhower has gotten overlooked. And that's not something growing up in this area.
Yeah, that's not normal for them when it comes to football.
And it wasn't deserved either. I'm not saying that they were flat out disrespected, but I mean, third round playoff loss last year. I mentioned Davison was the Matt killer, and Eisenhower. In fact, you and I picked Eisenhower to win that game, and I didn't believe in Davison, and that was my fault. And I remember walking into Troy that day. I walked onto the field and I said, nope, I was wrong.
They're the real deal.
Yeah, I was whoops. But look, they had a great year last year. And, this is a team, a program that's always had great defenses, Zach. I mean, last year, it was just suffocating. I mean, it was like Legion of Boom-esque. I mean, steel curtain. Like
from the very beginning.
Unbelievable.
That first game that they only lost 7-0. I mean, that was all. That game was almost won completely on defense.
And then, Zach, nine guys from that defense come right back. And then you get Dalton Duicky back, one of the best linemen in the league, right? He's going to Western Michigan, and he hasn't really played in 2 years. And so now you add a guy like that to this defense. He's going to go both ways. I mean, oof. And I mean, Anthony Cardamone, one of the best linemen, probably the best Mike linebacker in the red. I mean, this defense, man, it's gonna be so good. It's so good.
No, totally. And if there is a year where a strong defense takes you far, this is the year. Like I said, looking around, teams who, not that they don't have confidence in their quarterbacks, but I don't think their quarterbacks have been battle tested to the point where we can say they're going to come out swinging. Aside from Drosky on Dakota, he's got the advantage there. But I mean,
Eisenhower is not returning a starting quarterback.
No,
right?
And
that's a big loss.
That's the only thing I worry about for them is that we saw how long last year it took them to kind of kick that offense into high gear.
Couple weeks though, man. And once they did,
but this season
they don't
shorter,
have a couple weeks,
and they don't have these out of division games to rely on to kind of get some practice reps in, to get some game time experience. So they are really going to have to speed up that process if they're going to make it for the long haul here. Their defense can only, even if you stop the entire team and only allow them to score one touchdown, you still got to put up points too. You got to put something up if you're Eisenhower's offense. And we saw it took them a little while to kick that into high gear.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got him at 3.
I'm going to go with Chippewa Valley at 3 for me. Yes, is Chippewa Valley losing some very, very big names. The Harris brothers, Josh Kulka at the QB position.
Absolutely.
This was a team that went in as the favorite, I think, to win the state championship into playoffs and then lost first round.
2-time MAC Red champion. They get bounced. I mean, and that, I'll tell you what, Zach, you and I both remember this, and so does everybody else out there. That opening playoff game was not close. Dakota took that game right out the get-go and never looked back, and the game was never close. And you mentioned it. You've got to replace both Miles and Myron Harris, another quarterback you mentioned in Kalka. And this is and credit to the program, but this will be the third starting quarterback in 3 years, right? I mean, it's hard to develop consistency. But here's the thing, Zach. You're like, all right, you lose the Harris twins, but good news, you get...
Hey, there's another Harris in there.
And another set of studtastic twins in the Housey brothers, right? I mean, they can do it between Jalen and Quillen. They can do it all. They've both committed to Buffalo. I mean, you'll see them all over the field. I mean, and to have guys like that... I mean, and they'll have multiple running backs. They're going to have to. I mean,
let's not sleep on this program. Scott Merchant behind the wheel steering this ship is the guy I want in a rebuilding season. This is going to. I don't think they're going to have the explosive start like we saw last year, but maybe they'll finish a little stronger than they did last year. Maybe these guys will start clicking.
And we saw
towards the end of the season.
We saw some of that fatigue. They had that undefeated streak going, and we saw these games get closer.
They almost lost to Romeo last year towards the end of the season.
That was a great game. That was one of the
favorites of last year.
Yeah, that was one of the Mac's best games of last season. So that you're right. They won't come in with nearly the momentum that they had last season. It's not going to be there for them. But you mentioned Scott Merchant. You mentioned what he's able to do and what that program is capable of. So look, if everybody that's not number one, I have to issue all of you apologies. I mean, I'm not sorry for my picks, but everybody's got an argument here.
No, I don't disagree with that.
I mean, you find yourself in a spot where it's like we're flipping coins almost.
4.
So, look, this is where I've got Chippewa Valley, Zach. It's a tough spot for the champs, but I've got questions, as we mentioned. But you know what? I bet they have the answer.
Yeah.
I just haven't seen it yet. So that's why I have Chippewa Valley at 4.
That's fair. And, I flip-flopped with you on 3 and 4. So, I mean, my 4 is Eisenhower. That defense, I mean, you can't sell that short. I mean, that is going to be something that really is an advantage going into this season, more so than what any other team has, I think. So it's going to be up to the offense to kind of respond to how good that defense is playing. That their offense has a little bit of catching up to do, but if those things are firing on all cylinders, if those two components click, then watch out for Eisenhower. I mean, there's no other way to say it. These teams are all just very matched.
The more we talk about this, the more excited I'm getting.
And at this point, I almost I could turn over my list right now, and it would be the same. It's all the same.
It's like those brain teasers, right, where there's 2 pictures and you flip it one way and it looks completely different.
5.
Look, I feel like, as I have said, but I really feel like truly in this situation, putting Romeo at 5 is, I feel like they're undervalued here. I do. Romeo is too low. This has been a good program. This has been a good program for many, many years, going back to Greg Ganfield and even before that, right? But what Kurt Reines has done over almost 20 years now at Romeo, I mean, they got bounced in the opening round last year. Again, Davison was the killer. It looks like Ty Messner is going to replace Miller at the quarterback spot. But, I mean, the one, to me, is senior running back Brian St. Clair. He's one of the best throughout the MAC. And then, senior, the tight end, defensive end, Michael Heldman, he's going to go to Grand Valley. He'll make an impact on both sides of the ball. Romeo is so disciplined. Everything is so structured. When you look at Romeo and the way they operate, that, to me, is the closest. I covered college football for a long time. Romeo, to me, is the closest thing to a college program. And the discipline that they're able to extract from those kids as a result is why you see them be able to mix and match, plug and play, and just keep making it work year after year. Now, I will say, Zach, the one thing that and they'll say this too, the playoff results over the last few years have not been where they want them to be. They'll have a chance to make a difference and change that this year, right? I mean, I'm not expecting them.
Go back to, I'm
talking about
it feels like almost a long time since the state championship and then the trip to the quarterfinals after that.
But I'm not speaking out of turn from what they would agree with, right?
Sure.
That they want more out of the postseason. It's not, for Romeo, it's not just about getting there, right? I mean, I know this year everybody's going to get there, but it's about getting there, and then just like everybody else in this league, it's about getting there and then taking off.
Yeah.
And, anybody can do that this year, and I think Romeo has the discipline to do it. They've got the skill guys to do it. And so, having them at 5 is tough, but it just, when you stack them up against the rest of them, this is where the chips fall.
This is hard-nosed, disciplined football. And with that being said, when you have a team like that, you are going to win games that you're not necessarily expected to win.
Right.
You're going to go in, and it's kind of that heart that takes you to play all 4 quarters and to finish the game. Romeo usually finishes games pretty well. But I think there's just a lot of new factors here, and there's a lot of other teams in the MAC Red here that are going to have those experiences, that are going to have the teams like Eisenhower bringing back 9 players on defense. There's teams like Dakota bringing back a second-year starter in their quarterback. Even Stevenson, a team that has just seen a steady rate of growth and a team that's got some experience, this might be a building year for the Bulldogs. And I'm really, really anxious to see what's going to happen in that first game against Grosse Pointe South, because I think that's going to be very telling for the Bulldogs, considering they're going up against the new kids on the block.
Great transition.
6.
This team is no bottom dweller. I just need to see it. I just need to see it first. I'm putting him here because I need to see it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And because they're actually, on paper, really scary. Really scary.
Look, I mean, this Grosse Pointe South team went 10-0 their last 2 years in the MAC White. They lost to Cass Tech. That game ended under some controversy, if I remember correctly, in the opening round of the playoffs. It's a huge upgrade to the Red. With all respect to Mike Powell and that Anchor Bay program from the last couple of years, this is not about them. This is about Grosse Pointe South. Huge upgrade to the Red.
This is gonna make things a heck of a lot more interesting. Okay, so last season, we knew from the get-go you had a potential state championship team in Chippewa Valley, right? I don't think it's hard to look at any of these teams and say that they're going to be at Ford Field.
Remember, though, Grosse Pointe South is in Division 2.
Okay, so yes.
Just remember that it makes their path a little easier, but I agree with you. I agree with you.
So that being said, Zach, it's one of those things where you've got, even though there's no like real standout this year,
right?
This is a division that doesn't have a weak link. No weak links whatsoever. And usually a team that's making their first year appearance in a competitive league like the MAC, you'd put them at the bottom and you'd probably have them losing every single game really early on in the division. This team has gone 10-0 in the white for the last 2 years, and they are coming in with one of possibly the best players in the country.
Oh, there's no question that the Blue Devils do have one of the best players in the country. Two-way cornerback, wide receiver, Will Johnson. No commit yet, but I mean, if your football team matters, you have offered him a scholarship. I mean, from Alabama on down, I mean, dozens of offers. He is the real deal, right? I mean, we're talking NFL caliber. His dad played at Michigan. He knows how the drill goes. I mean, he alone is worth the price of admission.
Oh yeah, you want to?
And again, only
see
a junior.
Some exciting plays on the field. Go watch Grosse Pointe South.
I mean, and it looks like depth wise, they're going to have it at running back, but Zach, again, like all of the other teams in the MAC Red that don't have a quarterback returning don't seem to have that answer. And I think the way that this season has been kind of thrown together, if there was any kind of quarterback battle in quote unquote camp, I don't know how you could have it play out. Not enough time,
right?
Not enough time. So I don't.
It's going to be a gut feeling at the end of the day,
or a multiple quarterback feeling at the end of the day. Well, you got to figure it out. I think you got some kids.
That's fair.
If the battle has not been won, it would not be fair to flip a coin and just throw one of them in there. I mean, you can't be alternating on possession. But again, Grosse Pointe South. I guess what I'm saying is they're not alone. They're not alone in not having a defined starting quarterback. Only the returning guys have been able to nail that down, and so it'll be interesting to see how Grosse Pointe South fits into the Red, considering the size. They're even smaller than Romeo, not by a ton, but when you start to, I mean, the smaller you get, the closer you get to being half the size of Dakota, right? And it's just, that's a difficult task, but they have succeeded, Zach, at all levels. No matter what, as they continue to move up and up in the MAC, they've continued to succeed, and I think that continues now. I think now going undefeated in the Red, forget about it. Forget about it. It was hard enough over the last couple of years. Yeah. Going forward, forget about it.
Well, yeah, no,
forget about it.
I don't even think that's a question. That's they've got and they're going to they're going. Is Romeo home this week? No, Romeo's going on the road to Grosse Pointe South. I was going to say, if they had to come into Barnabo, that would be a tough first week
pretty quiet,
in the Red. Well, true. Good point. Yeah, you don't get that dog pound action like you used to. But either way, it's going to be an interesting start to the season. I got my eyes on that game, not because I think it's going to be the best game played that week, but I think it's going to be Very telling for both teams.
Well, let's go, Zach. Let's get right into it. Briefly, though, recapping here, I've got Dakota, Stevenson, Eisenhower, Chip, Romeo, and Grosse Pointe South. And Zach, you and I were similar, other than
almost the same way all the way down, except I got Dakota 1, Stevenson 2, Chip is my 3, Ike is my 4, right. Romeo 5, Grosse Pointe South 6, and power rankings. Those will be interesting this year, guys.
But that's where we start oppositely. Yes, when we get into power rankings, oh boy, we'll have some fun with that, no doubt. So, Zach, opening week, the game of the week. To me, we have a lot of question about this. You and I talk about this a lot when we who's going to be the game of the week. To me, there's no question. Anytime Dakota and Chippewa Valley meet, it's the game of the week, and to me, it's one of the biggest games going to be played in the state that day. There's no doubt about it. And hey, things are crazy enough. Let's just start here.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, come on, this is something if you played on that Chippewa Valley team last year, you have not stopped thinking about Dakota, right? This has been in the back of your mind the entire time. Right. I mean, they got bounced from the playoffs when they went up against Dakota, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the opening week.
Yeah.
At home.
Exactly. So this is something.
After being undefeated. Yes.
This is something that has been on those players' minds the entire time.
Yes.
And maybe the younger Harris brothers looking to get a little bit of revenge against that Dakota team.
Well, that's one of the things, that this for so many reasons this game is exciting, and it's part of it's just because of the history, the location, right, the proximity. But I mean, the way the season ended last year, Chip has been waiting for this, Zach. You nailed it. But to me, Dakota, too much. I'm taking the Cougars in this one, and it's a tough sell going on the quote unquote on the road. Look, this game, not much of a road game regardless. Now, I don't know if road games exist. It's just at a different place, right? True. That atmosphere replaced. But look, I'm taking the Cougars here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to take the Cougars. They were both our number 1 pick for the season, and it would be contradictory to not have them winning this game.
I'm going to contradict myself later. Don't worry about that.
I know, but I'm saying from the number 1 team, you're telling me is going to lose.
No.
Come on.
Right.
So that's fair. We got that Dakota Chippewa Valley rivalry. This feels like fall. This feels like Macomb County football.
Yeah, man,
this just feels right.
Yeah, no, and then to go from one to the other, you get Eisenhower and Stevenson, right? Another
great matchup.
Excellent old school Macomb County football rivalry. Fascinating this game is. I mean, you look at Stevenson's offense and what they're able to do, the amount of talent they have. I mean, very exciting.
But going up against arguably the best defense in the MAC Red right now.
Oh, I don't think you can say arguably if you want. To me, no argument. But remember Ike in the last season opener.
I know.
Remember what happened.
But who did they play?
Well, not the team that made it to the state semifinals. That's for darn sure.
Fair.
So because of that, we talked about the offense and the need for it to find its right gear. I'm not sure Stevenson's going to give him the time for that. I don't think so. I'm taking Stevenson over Eisenhower. I think this is going to be a really good football game. Very close. Very close.
I think you could have almost called this a game of the week too. This could be the runner-up essentially.
Absolutely.
But I'm actually going to take Eisenhower in this one. I think that Eisenhower defense is going to be if they can't stop or if Stevenson can overtake Eisenhower's defense, then they can do it to anybody in the MAC Red right now. So this is going to be very interesting to see how their offense responds to this battle-tested defense in Eisenhower. And I'm going to give the edge to Ike just based on the experience here, even though Stevenson has that young, hungry team with a second varsity season about to kick off for them.
Yeah, that game is going to be big time. Very excited.
How confident am I in my pick? I don't know, but I'm still going with Eisenhower.
I'm not sure anybody's confident right now in anything. So to round it out, Romeo at Grosse Pointe South. Look, these two teams are familiar with each other. They played last year. Romeo won that game. And in fact, because of the way crossovers work and the way they do it based on skill and size, these two teams have matched up several times over the last few years. These two teams are familiar as programs with one another. Here's my big concern for Romeo. I know I had them at 5 over Grosse Pointe South. if you're going to break in a quarterback, the first game to do it, you're not going to want to have a guy like Will Johnson on the corner, and this is exactly what's going to happen. So I'm very concerned about what Romeo's going to be able to do. But here's the thing. Romeo's probably not going to have to throw the ball a ton.
That was going to be my take.
It's
there
fair.
too.
But Will Johnson plays both ways, though. You can't isolating him one way is not going to stop him.
But if the plan is to let Messner get in there and throw some reps, that's not going to be a winning strategy.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be.
Luckily for the Bulldogs, they have Brian St. Clair, who's going to be able to pound the ball, and I think this is a game of interesting offensive plays. I think Coach Reines is going to have to be very creative with his offensive strategy in this one if they want to win. So I'm going to give the edge to the Bulldogs for that reason, because we've seen in past seasons how versatile they can be on offense and how they can kind of just throw different things at you. And that's
six running backs last year.
That's the way they attack, and their playbook dictates that. So I think this is going to be an interesting one, and but unfortunately for Romeo, it's not going to be an opportunity to really get some reps in for Ty Messner at the quarterback position unless you want.
Nobody's getting reps at the quarterback position this season when you play Grosse Pointe South. It's not happening. Yeah. It's not happening. Look, I'm taking the Devils. You're right about everything you said about Romeo running the football. In the opening week, when there are so many unknowns, one thing is guaranteed: Will Johnson's talent. That is a flat out signed, sealed, delivered guarantee. And to me, in the opening week with so many question marks, that's enough.
Well, and that's fair. And this is going to be a game to watch as well, just to see
great opening week.
This is a great opening week. I know Romeo is going to be streaming their games.
Everybody's you can watch all of them. It's gonna be great.
So as this develops, as we are able to watch these games, it's a little bit different than last year. We can watch more of these games and take more of this information in. So I'm excited for it. This is going to be good. It's going to be different, but it's going to be good.
Yeah. So again, to recap, I have Cougars, Titans, Devils. Zach and I not too much in agreement this time. We do both have the Cougars, but Zach, you went differently.
Yeah, I've got Ike over Stevenson and Romeo over Grosse Pointe South in their debut game against the in the MAC Red.
Zach going with 3 road teams. I like it, but I think in this environment,
like you said,
I don't
might
even
be irrelevant.
I don't even think that it matters. Zach, we're so excited that football season is back. We'll be back Wednesdays and Saturdays here on out, as long as football is played. Yep. I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know where this ends. I don't know what kind of twists and turns it takes. But whatever it does do, we'll be right here.
We're following along.
You can find us at 32andmain.com. We are all over social media. Get out and enjoy those Friday night lights, man.
Thanks for listening to the Mac Attack with Zach and Zach. For more, visit 32andmain.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Mac Attack Pod. And don't forget to like the Mac Attack with Zach and Zach on Facebook. The Mac Attack is a proud member of the 32 and Main Network.